So a new trailer just dropped from the D23 Expo by Disney, which is basically their big E3, and it's got me having some feelings. Here's the trailer. I mean, everything looks pretty damn cool. Marluge is back, so there's that. He's looking extra pretty now. So pretty. Oh, hey, Toy Stories. Yeah, Toy Story looks pretty cool. And, oh, look, that's a neat little Heartless design. I guess it's good to know that Woody and Buzz are ride or die. And, wait a minute. Is that... Holy Mother of God! Monsters, Inc! Monsters, Inc! Monsters, Inc. is coming to Kingdom Hearts 3! Oh my god, people, this is not a drill. We have monsters. I repeat, we have monsters! We are getting monsters! And oh my god, that part where Boo's like, "You're Mike Wazowski," and Donald's like, "Oh, what? No, I'm not. And just look at the designs for Sora, Donald, and Goofy. Oh, I mean, Goofy looks like a horrible abomination from hell, but still, oh my god, they look like monsters. And oh my god, I'm freaking so hyped for this game. Give it to me now, Nomura. Nomura, give it to me. I want it. Please, just give it to me. I need it. So Kingdom Hearts 3 is looking pretty cool. Thanks in large part to the Unreal Engine, and I am personally super hyped for it. Now, I have been a fan of this series since shortly after it came out. I picked up the original game at a Game Crazy, the store that used to be part of Hollywood Video, back when I was living in Illinois a few months after it had come out, and I instantly fell in love with the game. I am one of those people who is an evangelist for this series. I will actively tell everyone that I think would enjoy this game to play this game. And not just this one game, all of them in the series. That said, I personally have not played all the games in the series. Yeah, I know. I should have played everything if I'm such a huge fan, right? Well, that's not really the case for me. I am a fan of this series, but mainly because the few games I have played have brought me countless hours of joy across 4 different consoles. The first Kingdom Hearts holds a special place in my heart. And I'm still kicking myself for losing the memory card that had the original save file. Not just because it had that, but it also had a bunch of other games like Ratchet Deadlocked and one of the Twisted Metal games, God of War. But that's not what's important right now. Though you will be missed, old friend. That game has some of the best moments, for me, from gaming that I will always remember. Probably most notably, Hollow Bastion. That entire level, from the exposition that's dropped to the first thing that happens when you get there, where Donald and Goofy just drop your ass for Riku because he's the one with the key, and everything in between, was just downright wonderful. I could have done without some of the slightly confusing architecture and awkward maze design for like the level and stuff, but everything else was pretty damn awesome. I mean, hell, it's the level in the game where you get Beast as a companion. Motherfucking Beast! Like, the only way that could have been better somehow is if you got Gaston along for the ride too, and you were like, making sure that they didn't fight the whole time because they're secretly enemies and all this. Like, they're enemies, but Sora doesn't really know, and it's just like Gaston's just like, "Huh, you think you're all clever, Beast? Well, I'm the better man." And Beast is just like, "Well, fuck you, I'm gonna get Belle." And Sora's like, guys, stop fighting, we need to be friends, that's the power of love." And anyway, all of this pales in comparison to what is easily my favorite moment from the very first game. The one defining moment that sticks out in my mind whenever I think about it. And it's this right here. This one moment from the very first game defines what this franchise is to me. Or more accurately, what I had hoped it would be. This showed us the true depth of Sora as a character, and just how far he'd be willing to go to save his friends. He was willing to take his own life if it meant saving Kairi. But like all good things, it just couldn't last. A couple years later, Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, and that game and I have a complex relationship. Let's just say that. When I first played it shortly after it initially released, I was only 13. As such, I enjoyed the ever-loving hell out of it. It seemingly improved upon every aspect of what I enjoyed about the first game, with new worlds, new spells, new weapons, new mechanics, new allies, and so much more. But then, I grew up. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it happened. Having played it again recently, I can't help but notice several problems that keep it from being what I once thought was magic. I go back to the first game, and it's all fun. I enjoy the hell out of it. There's very few moments in the first game where I will sit down and actively say, okay, I'm not having fun. The second game, I can't say the same. The pacing of the story is just broken, with this game becoming the start of a downward spiral that is the story of this series. Most of the worlds were either rehashes of ones from the previous games to talk about parts of the story they didn't get to talk about, or are half-assed retreads of the story, more in the game to try and justify boss fights for the Organization 13 members. Like, we didn't need to go to Beast's Castle. That entire world was just there so we could get that third member of Organization 13. What the fuck is his name? That guy. So we could get a fight with him. Most of the combat in this game I thought was difficult when I was a kid, but now it's just kind of meh. You go back to the first game, they have tech points, where if you attack a fire enemy with Blizzard, it will give you an extra bonus, or if you block an attack, it'll give you an extra bonus. They completely removed that for this game, and just made it so you could literally just press the main attack button over and over again and get just as good results, if not better. I could potentially just be chalking this up to years of extra gaming experience, making me a little bit more aware of the problems, but I digress. I'm not going to go into every problem I have with the second game, because I'd be here for 12 hours if I did, and just say that it does not hold that special place in my heart any more than it once did. No. That space is filled by a very, very special old friend. Rest in peace, buddy. Most likely in an old couch somewhere. Because that's where I last saw you. I should really check my couch for that. I barely had much of a chance to play Chain of Memories, which is the next game in the list of what I've played. Mainly because I had it originally on the Game Boy Advance. And I didn't really play it that much, mostly because I didn't really like playing on my Game Boy Advance, because all of my friends had Game Boy SPs, and they would rub it in my face every time I pulled out my Game Boy Advance. They'd be like, oh, you have that? Well, I've got the one that lights up and folds, and I'm just like, oh, well, screw you, and yeah. I did, however, get the chance to play Chain of Memories when it was re-released on the PlayStation 2, and boy, do I wish I'd played it on the Game Boy Advance instead. By no means was it bad on the PS2. It's just an odd combination of the first game's movement and control scheme with the deck building mechanic that makes sense for a handheld with the way that the combat worked, but it didn't really work here. It kind of forced you to juggle too many things at once, and it just didn't work out as well. Finally, the last game I have officially played through, I should mention, I've played some of the other ones, I just haven't played them all the way through, was Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days for the Nintendo DS. And yes, that is the proper way to say that name. This is the one where you get to play as Roxas as he goes through his missions in the organization. You get to meet Shion, you get to have fun with Axel and her, and all in all, it was alright. Now, the point of me putting this entire video up, the whole reason I'm even talking about this in the first place, other than the fact that we just got the new trailer, is A, I am hyped as all hell for a new Kingdom Hearts game. And B, I wanted what I'm about to say to have context. As someone who is a serious fan of this series, the point I want to make is that Kingdom Hearts is just about wasted potential. This is coming from someone who would easily get the Heartless symbol tattooed on my chest, and only partly so I can potentially cosplay as a fatter, shirtless Ansem, who is white. When I say wasted potential, I mean that this series has done so much for Square Enix that by pushing the date of Kingdom Hearts 3 further and further back, and by releasing these side games that try and help explain the story while simultaneously just adding more questions to be answered in later installments, you get what I like to call the Lost effect. I'm probably not the only one that calls it that. Remember Lost? That show by J.J. Abrams that came out that had a smoke monster or like a polar bear or something? Can you tell I didn't watch the show? Lost, to me, is the TV equivalent to Kingdom Hearts, except Kingdom Hearts is better because it has Goofy. At some point, I think the writers of Kingdom Hearts realized that they had an audience, and much like the Final Fantasy series, thought that they needed to add new elements and ideas to try and make sure that those fans stuck around. Give them something new to look forward to. Maybe new graphics, maybe new mechanics, new characters, new something. But at the same time, bring enough back of the old features to help please those fans so that they don't think it's just a new game with the Final Fantasy logo slapped on, kind of like certain elements of Kingdom Hearts 2. Looking at you, Atlantica.
Don't be shy, let the music inside and dance, dance, dance.
It's also why we have poor representations of just about every Final Fantasy character throughout the series of Kingdom Hearts. I mean, they're there, they do stuff, but it's pretty contradictory to what these people were in their respective games. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit, I'm not a big fan of Final Fantasy. I've played through the first two games back in the NES days when I would play between Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Bros. Because I love me some classics. And I've tried Final Fantasy 7, 10, 10-2, and 13 since. Depending on who you talk to, I pretty much hit the greatest hits for the series, and it didn't do much for me. Except for Final Fantasy 13. Fuck 13. Apparently, that I was just told to say that. I do know that Cloud, from the first time he appeared on screen in Kingdom Hearts, was not the Cloud from Final Fantasy 7. We got a version of Cloud that I best describe as a teenager who got a $2,000 gift card for Hot Topic and decided to change his entire lifestyle around that $2,000 gift card. Does that sound like a stretch? Well, that's the vibe I get off of this version of Cloud. I mean, just listen to this exchange here.
I tried to exploit the power of darkness, but it backfired. I fell into darkness, and I couldn't find the light.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is supposed to be the same person who in Final Fantasy VII has an entire plotline in that same game where he has to dress up as a woman because reasons! Do you see this doing the same thing? Do you see him doing any of that? Saying let's mosey and going with a ludicrous plan like that? I don't think so. And it's not just Cloud either. Pretty much every Final Fantasy character gets shafted in this series, mainly because they all suffer from the same disease. Plot device. They are there to help the plot move forward, give lip service for exposition, and just be there for fan service for the people who played Final Fantasy before. They are not there to talk about or even really reference their own games, but literally everything about the Disney worlds is. So why do the Final Fantasy characters get shafted? Why are they the ones that have this problem? You know, I honestly don't know. I could probably do an entire video looking into it, but that's not the problem here. They are just a symptom. So let's talk about the real problem that Kingdom Hearts has. The one thing that has been keeping it down and why we have been waiting for 13 long years for the third installment to this series. The story. Now, I am a fan of several YouTube channels. Markiplier and Jacksepticeye are two that I watch frequently. I'm a big fan of Achievement Hunter. I'll watch occasionally things like Extra Credits, things like that. But one channel I've been getting into watching a lot more recently is called the Cosmonaut Variety Hour. You should go check out their stuff. They're actually pretty good, and I kind of hope I can be friends with them. They have a video talking about Kingdom Hearts problems, and in it, Marcus, the narrator, says that the biggest problem in the series is the writing. Now, I'm not going to say that he's wrong, but he ain't exactly right either. Sorry, Marcus. Please don't hate me. we can still be friends, right? I have Oreos. The double stuff. The writing in this series is hot garbage. I made that Lost analogy because it feels like they have been making shit up since the second game. Hell, even before that. And even they have realized just how far their own foot has been shoved into their proverbial mouths. That's why the last 3 releases, Dream Drop Distance, Kingdom Hearts X back cover, and Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a Fragmentary Passage, holy hell, what is that game title, are just there to help explain the plot holes and problems we've had with the series up to this point. The problem with this approach is that they're trying to fix a story that they broke a long time ago by adding more stuff in. Now, I don't mean they just broke it. When I say they broke it, I mean they took it and slammed it across their leg like Bane breaking Batman's back. The story of Kingdom Hearts is Batman's broken back bad. Does that mean it can't be fixed? Of course not. But the approach they are taking is less about fixing problems and more about introducing new elements that justify old ones, rather than coming up with reasons or explanations for what is happening. Do you know why Star Wars is so beloved? Blind faith. We didn't care what the Force was. We saw Obi-Wan talk about it, we saw the mysticism of it, and we were sold. Force, magic, space magic, give me. But the second Lucas gave us midichlorians in episode 1, everyone went apeshit. By introducing a new element that no one asked for, you not only cause more problems for you in terms of storytelling, but you also add something to the mythology you've developed that wasn't even needed in the first place. We didn't know why people were force sensitive. The thought was just anyone could be. It was something magical. The same can be said for something like the Nobodies. In Dream Drop Distance, it's revealed that if a nobody can return to human form if their heartless and nobody was destroyed. And that entire thing is just pointless. They could have just as easily made some garbage fake dimension or something to explain why these fan favorite characters were back, or, more sensibly, not include that as a plot line at all. And of all of this strife, all of this anger, can be boiled down to one game. One moment from one game that turned everything from a fun, plucky story where you run around with Donald and Goofy helping your childhood heroes relive some of your favorite movies, and turned into a soap opera so boring that even the Soap Network wouldn't air it. Is that a funny joke? I don't know. Anyway, here's that scene. Yeah, remember this scene? The one I showed you like 5 minutes ago? This right here, while it is still one of the most powerful moments in the entire series and is totally justified in the actions of the characters, is why our story is so messed up. It's why we have to have a 3-hour tutorial for Kingdom Hearts 2. It's why we've had every game released after Kingdom Hearts 2 be spin-offs. And it's why Kingdom Hearts 3 has taken so gosh darn long to make. Because Sora stabbed himself. I can understand that some of you might be confused, but because of this moment, this few minutes where Sora stabs himself, roam around as a Heartless, and get saved by light magic from Kairi, we have been given literally everything else about this universe. All because Nomura and the team behind these games felt they had to justify every decision they made going forward with this being the catalyst. Don't believe me? You remember Roxas? The boy you play as in the entirety of the tutorial for Kingdom Hearts 2 before becoming Sora again? Only to then spend the rest of the game being reminded about who Roxas is and how great it was that you were him? Yeah, he was formed during this moment. Right there. This, right when it goes here. But why doesn't he look like Sora? All the other nobodies looked like themselves when they were human. You're right, random person I made up for this. That's because of this guy right here. I'm sorry, that might be confusing to some of you. This is Ventus, not Roxas. Yeah. Ventus is from Birth by Sleep, and briefly came into contact with Sora's child's heart. And Sora offered some of his power to the heart and said, hey, you can come live in my chest. And Ventus was like, cool. And then when Sora split his heart so that Kairi could have hers back, he ended up becoming Roxas. It's confusing, but guess what? I ain't done. Because of that moment right there, because of this heart stab, we eventually got an explanation for nobodies, which gives us not only a whole new enemy to fight, but a whole new thing to explain. Because up to that point, we had heard nothing about them, but they have apparently been there the whole time. We had to be given an entire game to not only showcase the plan of these people, but we were technically given 2 games. One to explain the cosmetic change so that Roxas could exist, and the other to explain Roxas's time in the organization so you could understand what the hell was happening while you were being Sora. I'm not even done yet, people. This is exhausting. So what about Vanitas, the guy who shows up at the end of the new trailer? Some of you might not even know who the hell that is. If you've only played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, he doesn't show up. Vanitas is the evil within Ventus that was extracted by Xehanort in an effort for Xehanort to make what's called the X-Blade, so that he could have access to Kingdom Hearts and essentially have unlimited power. But when that backfired, Xehanort brought Ventus to Ericus, who was training Aqua and Terra, and basically said, hey, I've got this kid. He's super good. I need you to train him. But I secretly want you to train him so that I can have him fight this evil version of him so I can forge the X-Blade. And because of this decision, because of him splitting this one kid, we have the entire conflict for this series. I didn't even have a chance to explain all of the stuff that's happening with Riku, all of the things that are happening with the organization, Castle Oblivion, half of the plot lines that go nowhere, or any of that stuff. That's how borked up this series is. Long story short, this series is borked because of attempted meddling where meddling was not needed. Everything in this series that is wrong can essentially be traced back to this one moment. The moment they started to throw shit at the wall just to see what would stick and went with the stuff that didn't. Just look at the game from this point where he stabbed himself. The boss fight with Ansem, aside from 1 or 2 minor things that happen that are references to other Disney things like Fantasia, is so random and so psychedelic. It has very little to do with Disney. It's honestly just feels like it's from a completely different JRPG type game, and I thought that when I first played it when I was 13 or 11 or whenever the hell I was. I brushed it off back then because, I was a kid. It seemed like something a power-hungry guy like him might do, and I didn't understand Japanese games that much as a kid. But looking back on it now, it's just kind of weird. Now, this is not a perfect answer for all of the problems that this series has. By no means is this the answer. But is it reason enough for me to be afraid for the game that I have been waiting for the last decade for? That I'm afraid that it might not be good? Yeah. I've already had to sit through one hell of a development cycle for a game only to be disappointed. I don't want to be hurt again. But at the end of the day, all I can hope for is that we finally put this chapter of the Kingdom Hearts saga behind us, and we can move on to a potential new series of games that isn't up its own ass with complicated plots, the destruction of Final Fantasy characters, and focuses instead on fun gameplay in Disney worlds with some Final Fantasy characters who maybe represent the way they're supposed to, where I can punch a shadow in the face with a giant key alongside Hercules. I just want this game to be simple. Simple and clean. Hey friendos, thanks for watching this introspective piece about Kingdom Hearts. I got to thinking a lot about it after I saw the new trailer, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts with you guys. I am still very much excited to play the new game. I cannot freaking wait for it. And hopefully what I've said here doesn't make you think otherwise. All in all, I really hope it'll be great, but we'll just have to wait until later this year, which hopefully they don't change that date, to really find out. If you want to see us play some of the games, be sure to keep an eye out, because we are actually going to start playing through at least 1 or 2 of the games pretty soon. But until then, thanks for watching, and hopefully we will see you all very soon with some more fun things like this. Thanks a lot, everyone, and take care.